Hello and welcome back to Nasty Metal, Production channel here at YouTube, and welcome to another album of the week. This, of course, is episode number 72. So, now, on the day that I'm recording this, it's, of course, 4th of July. However, on the day that you are going to be listening to this or watching this, if you prefer to look at the visuals and so on this one, it will be actually my birthday. And of course, what better way to celebrate my birthday than to also spotlight a guitar player, a musician who actually was one of my gateway bands or musicians into the realms of hard rock and heavy metal. That's, of course, is none other than Ted Nugent. However, the album I'm spotlighting is not one of his most popular. In many ways, it's probably one of his more unpopular albums right here. That's, of course, the Scream Dream, which was actually released sometime apparently in June of 1980. So at this point, it's reached its 40th anniversary. Though on Wikipedia, before you even click on it, they'll even, if you look up the discography, the list of his albums there, they'll even list apparently January, and they'll even list May apparently. So I guess it's really it's unclear on what day or month this album was released on. But that really isn't the complete point of this here. It's not the complete focus. So anyways, the reason why this is the most unpopular album within Ted Nugent's discography really boils down to at least two sides. You have one side that basically will state this as one of his most worst albums, his weakest effort, this and that, and many people will list the reasons because of, let me see if I can try and quote many of the various reasons why some people will again, why this side thinks this album is one of his worst. They'll say, "Oh, this is the reason why he is the most terrible guitar player, why he's the most horrible vocalist, why he was never a great songwriter, this and blah blah blah." While the other side will state this is probably one of his most underrated efforts in his discography, and saying that this is definitely again one of his most underrated albums. Me, I lean towards the side that really considers this one of his most underrated efforts. Now, that because of all of this and because of it being so unpopular, that's not to also say that this didn't boast any hits. The only hit to actually come off this album, of course, is the opening track, Wango Tango, which, of course, when I was growing up and getting into Ted Nugent, which I will state the album that got me in, that really, at least made me aware of Ted Nugent, was the Great Gonzo Very Best Of. I believe it was titled The Very Best of Ted Nugent, which, of course, the compilation that was released in 1981. I've had the CD for years. I mean, when I was growing up, that was played a lot when I was growing up. That was my introduction to Ted Nugent, and Wango Tango was the only song off of Scream Dream that was on there. And again, it's a very catchy, hooky song. Again, very hooky, boogie rocker. That again, though very unique also for Ted Nugent, but it definitely has a lot of his, the typical mannerisms that made Ted Nugent at least popular and made him at least a concert attraction, and made him such a also I guess you can say a unique personality in the mid to late 70s and that time period. But because of the album being also a different, again, Wango Tango was the only hit. I think the minor hit off this one was the title track, and that was about it. The rest of the album is probably definitely closest to some of the more deep cuts. A lot of this album is definitely, again, after Wango Tango and there for Scream Dream, you get a lot of deep cuts. And again, there's some underrated fucking tracks on this album. For an example, again, the title track off this one, Hard as Nails and Violent Love, are definitely some of my biggest highlights. Even, of course, the vastly, criminally underappreciated track that is Flesh and Blood. This, of course, definitely at times seems to really harken a little bit more back to his Amboy Dukes era almost, but it's a little bit, again, given the sort of heavier bite to it. That's, of course, and again, another reason why this album tends to be so, definitely so polarized in the community, in the rock community, is because of this album. It has a little bit of heavier, more raw bite. This, in many ways, was not trying to bring back the more classic, I guess you can say, radio style rock that at least that the first album boasted, or even in terms of even Cat Scratch Fever or Free for All. This was more so trying to, in many ways, to kind of after releasing albums such as State of Shock, which was more of a, good album though, not a bad album at all there. Definitely another underrated album, but that one definitely was a little bit on the less manic side. It definitely boasted a little more of a more melodic side to Ted Nugent, whereas this one, due of course the growing new wave of British heavy metal movement, again, everyone definitely started to really started to actually, gears toward bands like, for an example, Motorhead, AC/DC, and Tigers of Pantang, Raven, and all those other new wave and European metal bands of that time period. And again, everyone wanted more of a harder, heavier bite. I think in many ways, Ted Nugent wanted to kind of take hold of some of that energy and apply it back to him. And the result was, and this was, again, most of the stuff on here was the result of that. And listen to a song like Violent Love. That right there is more of a very typical of almost a new wave of British heavy metal kind of sound there. It's got that sort of heavy boogie feel to it that, again, isn't very uncharacteristic of, let's say, of a band like Vardis, for an example. It's got that heavy bite to it, even a Motorhead. It just has that feel and attitude to it. It's definitely also one of his most raunchiest and definitely most vicious romps on this album. That's why it's definitely one of my favorites. But again, a song like Flesh and Blood on the example, which also one of the few rare Ted Nugent songs where he actually applies a heavy distortion to his vocal track. Definitely, and it's also another very cool track in itself, very heavy as well still. But again, it seems to also, I feel like definitely times, it kind of harkens a little bit back to his Amboy Dukes era a little bit. But still, in a way, has that classic Nugent feel to it as well of his solo albums from the 1970s. But still, there's definitely some other good songs in here. Also, again, due to, of course, him debuting on Weekend Warriors, we have, of course, Charlie Hunn on board here, which, of course, he would, of course, then leave after the Intensities, Intense Cities album, and would then play with the German hard rock heavy metal band Victory in the mid to late proportions of the 1980s. Still, his contributions to here is, of course, on songs such as I Gotta Move and Don't Cry, I'll Be Back Before You Know It, baby. I know it was a little slowly spoken there, but again, Don't Cry, I'll Be Back Before You Know It, baby. Definitely, though that definitely also shows plenty of Ted Nugent's inspirations, his influences, definitely harkens back to the more 50s rock legends such as, again, Chuck Berry, and so on. and maybe an Elvis Presley. Again, very back to that kind of sound, to that kind of stuff. Definitely, again, shows his influence on that track. Of course, also, we even also have vocal duties from drummer, the late Cliff Davies, which is actually on the song Come and Get It, which is definitely something which was rare, actually, to actually hear Cliff Davies sing on any of his Ted Nugent albums. Again, I mean, for as long as he was in Ted Nugent, it's definitely something that it took at least until Scream Dream to actually see him at least do, you know, at least him to contribute any vocal stuff. I don't know if yeah, I think Scream Dream was. I'm just still here looking through the discography here on Wikipedia. Yeah, Scream Dream was the first album where he actually was able to actually contribute vocals to. And again, it was on the song Come and Get It. Still, there's also, again, besides some of the songs I have at least covered here, there's still some other decent rockers on this one that I also enjoy. Again, I also enjoy the song I Gotta Move. I also enjoy Spit It Out. I enjoy Come and Get It. I also dig the rather unique song that is Terminus El Dorado. It actually kind of reminds me a little bit of Manic Mechanic off of ZZ Top's Degüello. It actually kind of it's got a similar feel to that one, though it's definitely, again, it just has that kind of same feel to me. Still, though, it's definitely a cool track, and it took me years to actually to appreciate the song Terminus El Dorado, but it definitely has a nice, very cool groove to it. But I definitely dig it. So really, all in all, there really isn't a bad song. This is actually definitely, I feel, is one of his most underrated albums. I mean, for those that are coming to a Ted Nugent album and are expecting very thoughtful lyrics, you actually, to be quite honest, even since the first album or some of the stuff in even the Amboy Duke stuff, you really have to look elsewhere. I don't know why many people actually would think that when they come to a Ted Nugent album or when they listen to a Ted Nugent album, that they are expecting the most well thought out lyrics. I mean, listen to at least to his live performances on Double Live Gonzo. You expect the fucking guy to actually write the most thoughtful freaking love track you'll ever hear, or the most thought-provoking song that takes your mind somewhere else, that makes you think? No. You expect him to be the most wild, most outrageous individual on the entire planet. And also, don't get me fucking started on his politics these days, okay? Don't get me. But still, because of the way how he thinks these days, you expect at least the most well-written song to come, the most well thought out. No, I do not expect him to write something like Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner or fucking Dark Side of the Moon. I don't expect that. I expect something like freaking Motor City Madhouse. I expect something like freaking Cat Scratch Fever. I expect something like Smokescreen or again, Scream Dream. That's what I fucking expect, and most of this album has that. I mean, I already mentioned a song off this one, but still, just to give you examples, that's what I've come to expect. If you can't come to expect some of that, you have to look elsewhere. Again, this album in many ways kind of fits in line with more of the hard rock, heavy metal albums of 1980. Like again, Ace of Spades from Motorhead, or Back in Black from AC/DC, and again, even the Wildcat from Tigers of Pantang. It's more in line with that kind of style than something like, let's say, a Styx album, or even a Foreigner album, or something or again, a Pink Floyd, or again, like The Wall. You don't expect that. You expect something wild and raunchy, and fucking ruckus. That's what you expect. So with that, definitely an underrated album. I know, if you are definitely one of those people that definitely enjoyed this album, leave your comments down below. And since it had at least hit its 40th anniversary this year. And if you definitely feel like revisiting this album, and who knows, this is definitely one of those videos that probably made you inspired to probably go and revisit this album. And if you're one of those that didn't really care much for this and do like some of his stuff, and if this video does kind of a little bit give you some second thoughts, definitely go and give it one more listen and definitely see if it still does anything, if it finally does something for you. So with that, everyone, take care. Hope all of you had a great 4th of July. Take care, everyone.